And so if you could just start by giving me a brief introduction of your name, your title, and then a little bit about Organic Valley.
Okay. Well, my name's Jack Lee. I'm the director of category strategy and insights for Organic Valley, which essentially means I'm running a 7-person department involved in category management. I have a long career in organic natural foods. I started in 1977 in a warehouse in the Seattle, Washington area, worked my way up to working at a brokerage and part ownership for 13 years that specialized in organic natural foods and selling in the Pacific Northwest. In 2003, I became a direct employee of Organic Valley after representing them as a broker. And Organic Valley, of course, is the largest farmer-owned cooperative in the United States. We produce 100% organic full-line dairy products. We have over 1,800 farms. Our average herd size is 76 cows. And our mantra is bringing the good. And we've been in business since 1988 and have been lucky enough to be selling $1 billion a year for several years now. Well, I would add one thing. Our goal is to give the farmer a sustainable pay price, and the farmer is the owner and operator of the business. And we're dedicated to pasture-based farming. Our farmers graze 50% more than what the organic standards call for.
Thank you. Okay, so now let's shift towards the current environment and COVID. Whatever you're most comfortable with, but really we're just trying to gather some learnings of how you're reacting to this pandemic.
Sure. Well, COVID has obviously been a major wrinkle for everybody. It's on a global basis, which is something to think about in and of itself. So the kind of setup we have actually assists us in a moment like COVID, where if we have problems in any one area of our production, we can shift to other production facilities or co-producers in order to keep our milk moving and being produced into the products that we sell. And time has been, like all businesses, we're experiencing a shift in business. Some of the more, a number of producers, as you've been watching your food service sales decline as restaurants have been closed, while you're watching your e-commerce and retail grocery orders climb as people are shopping and eating at home. And many people are looking for ways to reduce their time spent in stores, therefore the increase in e-commerce or pickup type of retail grocery services. And consumers are also definitely changing some of what they're looking for. They're tending towards larger pack sizes, or they're definitely, when it comes to milk, wanting more aseptic produced milk than they were prior to COVID. So the shift in business when you're producing perishable items is a challenge to stay on top of all the different shifting forms of production and transportation of the product. Then there's also the area of safety. So like many groups, we instituted a mandatory work at home for all employees capable of performing their jobs at home. Then when it comes to essential staff who are working in our own production facilities, there's a very strict protocol on safety, sanitation, and practices to try to prevent against an outbreak of COVID.
You touched on this a bit when you were just discussing how you're watching, food service sales go down and seeing an increase in e-commerce and grocery sales. But the next question is going to be how you use data to support your planning and sales and marketing approach.
You bet. Well, of course, one of the major wrinkles with COVID is that it has dramatically changed the demand on businesses, including ours, that change in demand will most likely not continue in its current state. So certainly something we experience and a lot of producers are also probably experienced was a huge spike in sales in mid-March as the American consumer bought up to prepare to live at home. That increased demand has continued. And so it is creating a set of variables or data that aren't the norm. And most likely, depending on the impact to our economy, may not continue to be a norm, especially for a group like my own that's producing a premium item that has a higher price tag. So some of the ways we're working with data is to watch the current trends, compare what happened at other times of recessionary pressure, say in 2000, 2009, 2008, 2009, or back in 2000, to remind ourselves of what the tracking and trending was at that time, which of course will be unique to that time in that situation, while this is a different time and a different situation, but can lend itself to understanding maybe some of the overall patterns that could occur.
Why do you choose to partner with Spins?
The first thing I'd point to is in my own career experience as a broker. For 13 years, I was essentially the sales manager for the brokerage. And Spins was a tool that I used during those 13 years in order to be able to effectively have data-based selling for the 50 to 60 lines I represented as a brokerage. So early in my career, I became well schooled on Spins and favored using it as compared to other sources of data because Spins was coding themselves to be the most useful for an organic or natural food sales, very keyed into the things that were important to the producer of those items as well as the consumer of those items. And that coding is far superior to other formats that are offered in the marketplace. One of my clients was Organic Valley, so I was selling Organic Valley with Spins data as a broker and then just made that easy transfer over to it when I became a direct employee of Organic Valley in 2003. One of the bigger wild cards of the moment is in this crazy atmosphere of COVID, we know that while grocers have suffered with not having all available products on the shelf, that has, definitely invited the consumer at some points to buy items they wouldn't normally buy, i.e. then giving trial to an item that isn't their normal thing that they would buy or shop for. So how do you track that purchase, that person, and have hopes of having them move from trial to actually becoming a regular consumer of the product is certainly one of the wrinkles most producers are trying to think their way through right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, my last question for this interview is in the spirit of really paying it forward. Obviously, Organic Valley is one of the most highly respected brands in the industry. But if you were lessons that you've learned, right? If you were a new emerging brand, do you have any bits of advice on what you wish you knew?
Well, the general advice I'd give is I would remind those people that my group started with 8 farmers in 1988 and has grown to over 1,800 producing members selling over $1 billion. So definitely we are an example of a group that started small and grew. That being said, I think the accumulated experience I've had as a broker or a vendor rep or the different jobs I've had I think you can always count on that it's going to cost more money and take more time than you probably initially think to establish your item and brand. And that you, as the producer of it, are a true believer in it, but you'll be selling to a world that needs to be convinced, that is a complicated network that you will have to navigate in order to reach that success. Certainly, the more schooled you can become in the ins and outs of how the system works, what the true costs are related to that business, networking, becoming connected to the appropriate people. Those are all such important steps of reaching the success you desire.
I so appreciate it. As always, we appreciate the partnership. And wow, there are just so many wonderful nuggets of information that you've provided. So thank you for taking the time.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to represent Organic Valley.